Hi, my name is Jeff Pulliam, and you are watching VIBL number 4. Today we're going to be talking about the project charter. And the project charter you've gotten a really good head start on. In fact, last week when you put together your problem, opportunity, solution statement, or what we're calling the POS statement, you have essentially created the baseline for your project charter. That solution statement, that's part of that POS statement, that, as we all know, is that bridge to opportunity. And so building that bridge, building that solution is your project. And with that as the baseline to the project charter, you are well on your way to putting together something fantastic, which is, of course, the project charter, which we're talking about today. Project charter is made up of a number of things. So what I'm going to share with you and tell you today is it's made up of assumptions. It's also made up of constraints, and we'll define these as we go along. The last couple of items I want you to think about is there are high-level risks that we must consider when we speak to project charters. And also, we need to put together what the success criteria will be. Because the question is, in the project charter, as we show justification for the need of the project, is, well, how do we know that we've solved the problem? What are the measures in place that will show that we've accomplished what we've set out to do, and that the work that we do will bring about and resolve those problems and make those opportunities a reality. So let's first talk about assumptions. Assumptions, basically, as I look at it, is the canvas. It's the canvas that you're going to be painting upon this project. And when we think of assumptions, assumptions are not making a you-know-what out of you and me, as we most can probably relate to when we think of assumptions. But assumptions are very important in projects. And so, for example, if you're managing and putting together a plan for a birthday party, well, you have to assume some things for that birthday party, right? I mean, you have to assume that guests will come, because if guests don't come, you don't have a party. So you have to make that assumption that guests will come. You have to assume that you will print out invitations, and the invitations will be of the type that you expect those invitations to be. Maybe they're long and elaborate, maybe they're short and sweet. But you have to assume that you'll be putting together invitations. You have to assume that if it's an outdoor birthday party, that the weather will be cooperative and that the weather will be nice. So the idea is you're painting this canvas for the project, that this project will be within, it's almost like building a fence, building a boundary around this project. And so that's how assumptions play a role in the project charter. Generate those assumptions. Next, we need to think about a very important thing, was constraints. And constraints are something that are rooted in projects. So for example, a constraint could be a cost constraint, right? A cost constraint could be that your birthday party has a budget of $500 and it cannot exceed that. It cannot exceed that. So you have to have no choice but to build your project plan based on a $500 constrained budget. So constraints are rock solid. They're rooted in the project and they're immovable. So knowing that means that you have to plan around a constraint. And when you put together the project charter, and those executives who read your project charter will realize that there are some certain rock solid constraints that you're going to have to deal with. And this is important to know within the project. Another thing that we need to think about are high-level risks. And really what evolves and what will result as would be from the assumptions that you make the project are these high-level risks. So for example, we speak to the weather, that we assume the outdoor birthday party will have good weather, but that also poses a risk. And we can state to those high-level risks is that what if the weather does not cooperate and it is a rainy day on the day that we want to have this outdoor birthday party, right? You establish those high-level risks so we know that the weather may not be cooperative, as an example on our birthday party situation. The last thing we want to think about is success criteria. How do we know that our project is going to be successful? Well, we must be able to provide information, data that is not ambiguous, but that is very much black and white, that we can literally take out a tape measure and be able to measure that this was a successful project. So, for example, if you have a budget and at the end of the project your budget was $492.63, and our constraint was that you needed to be under budget, Well, you've met the constraint and the project's successful in that regard. So you'll want to list some bullet points. You want to list some success criteria that is not ambiguous, that is rock solid, and based on solid information and data that you can literally take a tape measure out and measure. So let's review real quick then what is the premise and what is important to think about and to include in your project charter. Well, the first thing is the POS statement. Literally, cut and paste it into your project charter. Secondly is develop those assumptions, create that environment, start to develop that canvas, start to build that boundary to which your project will work within. Then we need to think about constraints. We need to think about those immovable objects that are part of the project that you need to consider. Then we look at those high-level risks, and those will be a result when you take a look at those assumptions. Look at those assumptions and think what high-level risks might be something that needed to be listed. In this case, with the birthday party, that it being outdoors, the weather. The weather is a high-level risk that needs to be considered. And then lastly, we need to have that success criteria. List that success criteria and be able to take that tape measure and know, was this project successful? Was this project not successful? Based on solid success criteria that is not ambiguous, but that is straightforward and easily measured. So that's your VIBL for number 4 for today. It spoke to project charters. Take this information, do your readings on project charters, and I'll have a VIBL number 5 out in the next couple of days. Thanks, and we'll talk to you soon.